In this episode,
students opting for expensive cameras and then saying that they have no money to buy the right lens. In this episode, I'm going to be speaking about something called as the reverse concept, which will be an outline to plan your clinical photography equipment. The most important question that people usually ask is which is the best camera for dental photography actually does not hold true in this. It's not really about your imagination or creativity. We just need to follow protocols, and the protocols are set. It's not recommended that one uses a zoom lens for documenting clinical cases. Hopefully, this episode will help you in the way you invest on your equipment, and it's going to help you save a lot of money and prevent you from making wrong choices. You're listening to the Dental Photography School podcast, where I'll be sharing practical tips on clinical and general photography. I'm Dr. Mayur Davda, and I've been coaching dentists and dermatologists on clinical photography since 2013. If you don't want to miss out on any action, make sure to subscribe to my show because I release an episode every Saturday morning. I have seen people making a lot of mistakes when it comes to equipment selection. So this episode is dedicated for people who want to understand how to go about selecting the right equipment for clinical photography. I have seen a lot of people, especially students, opting for expensive cameras and then saying that they have no money to buy the right lens. I have also seen PG students having a basic camera but the wrong lens, for example a zoom lens like 18-135 lens, and complaining later on that they are not able to do the right kind of clinical photography. In this episode, I'm going to be speaking about something called as the reverse concept, which will be an outline to plan your clinical photography equipment. This concept can be applied by any clinician like a dentist, dermatologist, or an ophthalmologist, or even an orthopedic surgeon. Basically, a medical professional from any specialty can use the reverse concept, and it helps the clinicians to buy the right kind of equipment for themselves and save a lot of money. But why is it called the reverse concept? We will understand that shortly. But before understanding the reverse concept, you need to understand that clinical photography or dental photography is equal to flash photography. That means flash influences our images a lot, and our photography is not really dependent upon the ambient lighting that's in our room. The most important question that people usually ask is which is the best camera for dental photography actually does not hold true in this concept. So according to the reverse concept, flash is the most important equipment for us as a clinician, be it a dermatologist, an orthopedic surgeon, a general surgeon, or even a dentist. Alright, so you need to think about the end result first. So we have different flashes available for different systems. For example, mobile phones have something called as inbuilt LED light. They also have something called as a ring light. And DSLRs obviously have a huge variety of flashes that they can be used with. For example, they can use a ring flash, they can use a twin flash, also called as a dual point flash. They can also use studio lights with softboxes. So the bottom line of the reverse concept is think about the end result first and then go about deciding on how much to invest on each equipment. So what are the basic equipments that we need for clinical photography? Number 1, the camera. Number 2, the lens. And number 3, which is the flash and the accessories. But the reverse concept says that it's better to think in the reverse order, in the sense flash is the most important equipment, followed by the lens, and the least important equipment is the camera. But obviously, you need to decide what system you are going to be working with in clinical photography. Are you going to be using mobile phone? Are you going to be using a DSLR? Or are you going to use a mirrorless camera? So once you've decided that, it's best to think about how you're going to invest on each of the equipments. One must invest maximum on the flash system or the lighting, because that really affects our images a lot. So when it comes to mobile phones, you have very limited options, but when you're using a DSLR or a mirrorless camera, you have 4 major options. So what are they? When you buy an entry-level DSLR or a mirrorless camera, you have an inbuilt flash. So that is one good option for which you do not have to pay separately. But that's not very powerful, and the light is unidirectional and it gives really ugly shadows. So once again, I would like to reinforce over here that it's really important to envision the end result of our pictures. It's very easy to envision that in clinical photography because it's not really about your imagination or creativity. We just need to follow protocols, and the protocols are set. And we can actually follow the images that we like. We can have a look at it on Instagram or other social media or even other journals. Once we have decided what we like, it's time to round up on the light system first. So let us discuss what are the 3 other available options when you are planning to invest on a DSLR or a mirrorless camera. So we have a very good option called as the ring flash, which is the workhorse and works like a charm for most of the clinicians, irrespective if you are a dentist, dermatologist, orthopedic surgeon, or anyone else. Then comes the twin flash. The twin flash essentially gives light from 2 different directions. So you can actually sculpt what you are planning to make an image of, and you can actually bring out the 3rd dimension with the help of twin flash. It has a good amount of learning curve. So I would suggest that twin flash must be best kept for people who have the amount of patience to use them adequately, because if we do not angle the light correctly in twin flash, it could give us worse results than a ring flash or an inbuilt flash. So twin flash is another great option. If you are shooting larger body parts, for example, the full face or the full limbs or the abdomen, I think that the best light system to be used in this particular case would be studio lights, because they are extremely powerful and give a good amount of light for our pictures. According to the reverse concept, one must invest heavily on the lighting system, that is the flash system. Alright. Then comes the next most important equipment, that is the lens. When it comes to mobile phones, you really do not have a good amount of choice over there. You can either use the inbuilt lens that's available in your cameras. Nowadays, there are a lot of mobile phones with different lenses in their cameras. For example, some mobiles have a single lens, some mobile phones have two lenses, some of them even have 4 or more lenses. But the ideal lens for documenting our cases would be a lens with a higher focal length, because typically the lenses that are available on the mobile phones are wide angle lenses, which are actually meant for landscape photography. And they do tend to give a lot of distortion if you bring the lens very close to the subject. But nevertheless, if you still want to use mobile phones for documentation, you can actually choose the lens of your choice if you get an option for it. I would suggest that you should use a lens with a higher focal length. If you do not want to use the inbuilt lens of your mobile phone camera, you can also invest on an external lens like a clip-on lens. We have different clip-on lenses that you can put on top of your mobile phone lens. It could be a magnetic clip-on or it could be a mechanical clip-on, and it's going to give you relatively better results with respect to the distortion aspect. But one must remember that when somebody puts glass over a glass, it's obviously going to compromise in one way or the other. Is going to affect your image quality. So just keep that in mind and invest accordingly. Do not invest on cheap lenses if you're planning to buy a clip-on lens. Invest on a good company so that the optics are really nice and sweet. If you're planning to invest on a DSLR and a mirrorless camera, well, you do not really have much of a choice when it comes to documentation. It's not recommended that one uses a zoom lens for documenting clinical cases. So we are left out with very limited options, but they are the best options for clinical photography using professional cameras or semi-professional cameras. So what are these options? Typically, we suggest the use of macro lenses for documenting clinical photography because you can really come close to your subjects and shoot, which really helps us get really good pictures. So once again, invest a good amount of money on your lenses. Do not compromise on your lenses because it does affect your image output or your image quality. And when it comes to interchangeable lens cameras, we typically use macro lenses for documenting our cases. Coming on to the least important equipment for photography, and that is the camera. Now with a phone, you do not really have much of a choice because the sensors and the processors are quite inbuilt inside a mobile phone and you cannot change the camera inside your phone. But when it comes to DSLRs and mirrorless cameras, you do have a choice as to what you must buy or what you can buy. So which is the best camera for dental photography? Just go ahead and buy the most basic DSLR camera or a mirrorless camera, and that should be it for documenting your cases adequately. Just to summarize what we spoke about today, according to the reverse concept, flash is the most important equipment for documenting your cases. Invest maximum amount of money on your flash. The next important equipment is the lens and not the camera. So do not try to save money on lenses. Try to invest a reasonable amount of money for your lenses and invest on a good macro lens. We are going to be speaking about lenses in depth in our forthcoming episodes. And last but not the least, camera is the least important equipment in clinical photography. Just go ahead and buy the basic DSLR camera or a mirrorless camera, and trust me, even that is quite an overkill for clinicians or clinical photography. Hopefully, this episode will help you in the way you invest on your equipment, and it's going to help you save a lot of money and prevent you from making wrong choices. Just one golden tip that you must take away from this episode is do not invest a lot on your cameras, because if you think that an expensive camera is going to give you a great result, you might be wrong, because a great result is a function of your lens and a flash more so over, and not the camera as such. I would definitely not want my listeners to invest heavily on the camera just to regret later that they do not have enough money or the budget to buy the right macro lens or the right flash for themselves. If you have any questions, do put it on the comments as well, and I'll be looking forward to answering your questions. In the meantime, you can also check out my website, that's www.dentalphotographyschool.in. There is a lot of content over there. There are blogs, there's an FAQ sections, and even videos. Also, do join our Telegram group, which is dedicated to clinical photography. We also have a dedicated Facebook group wherein you're going to be learning a lot, and that's the community with like-minded people. Looking forward to the next episode. Thank you so much for joining me. That's all we have time for in this episode. If you're getting benefited from my tips, do show your love by leaving a rating and a review. For tutorials on photography, do check out my channel Dental Photography School on YouTube. To participate in contests and live events, join the Dental Photography School Facebook and Telegram group. You can follow me on Instagram as Mayur_EOS Maestro or Dental Photography School. I'll meet you next week. Till then, keep listening, keep sharing.